What happens when someone builds a company that solves a problem that the market was never designed to see? That's the question at the center of this series. 7 founders, 7 companies. None of these companies fit the playbook. They don't look like the startups that get the headlines or the funding. They're not optimizing for the fastest exit or the biggest valuation. They're building in the space between what the market rewards and what communities actually need. And the question isn't whether what they're building matters, it's whether the systems around them, the capital, the infrastructure, and the institutions are designed to let them succeed. This is the Social Venture Studio Founder Series. 7 conversations with founders building at the edge of what innovation looks like when it's designed to serve more than the people writing the checks. I'm Kevin McGinnis. This is the Disruption Lab. Brandon, I want to start with you. You've survived 12 strokes.
Yep.
The first one came when you were 35.
Yep.
And now you're sitting here as the CEO of a company. What's the version of you that existed before the first stroke, and what did you have to let go of to be here where you're at today?
Well, I was a football star, like in high school, and knew everybody. I shook hands and kissed people before every class, and like knew everybody by name. I felt like it was my job to validate them. And so then I was a football coach as I grew up through that afterwards. I coached my kids. Everybody knew me, where we're from and stuff. And so then having the strokes and returning back in a wheelchair and stuff was a totally different feel. Um, I used to tell everyone, guys want to be like me and girls want to be with me. And being in the wheelchair, totally different situation is what it felt like on the inside. But it actually, the people didn't feel the way I felt about myself. And so people thought I was awesome and amazing. And I was like seeing this mirror that was totally different of who I was and stuff. So after the stroke, it took a long time to recovery. I felt like baggage to Lynn's. And so I had a flip moment and turned into her Gucci bags to carry around. And so then I make sure I dress how I want to feel and am who I want to be. And then that way, whatever the mirror, I don't even look in the mirror anymore. I know what I am when I wake up. And so that's basically the answer.
You describe a flip moment. What was the flip moment?
Well, it started the chair, for one, I used to have a manual chair. And when you have a hand like this, you can't really roll. You just go in circles. And so they sent me home in a manual chair that went in circles. So every day I would watch Corti, every day, all day. And I decided in my head, this is going to be my life. And then the rerun of Meet the Colors came on. And I knew it word by word. I was repeating what they were going to say before they said it. And it hit me, if I sit here and do this all the time, my life's going to be a rerun. And so about that time, I got a power chair too. And so then I decided I'm not going to sit here. I'm going to go out and be the happiest, best looking guy in a wheelchair anybody ever meets. And I want them to feel bad, that they feel sorry for themselves after they're done meeting me. And so that was like my moment where I turned into Mr. Validation pretty much.
He didn't want to get a power chair because he thought it would make him work less hard to walk.
Really?
Yeah. But it was pretty fascinating to see his entire demeanor completely change, just coming up a few inches in the chair and having the freedom to move about the house and do what he needed to do, and then start to leave the house on his own and eventually take the kids with him. It completely transformed the way he viewed the world at that point.
I haven't known you very long, but I can't imagine the person you described prior, knowing you now, at all. So that's fascinating. Lindsay, you've been Brandon's care partner for 15 years.
Yep.
And so I want to ask you something I think maybe a lot of care partners don't get asked enough. What happened to your identity during those years? Not Brandon's, but yours.
It completely was subsumed into the role of being a care partner. I didn't even remember how to introduce myself to someone without saying I'm a full-time caregiver for my husband for a decade almost. And I just recently started reconnecting with who I am underneath that role. So, yeah, it's very easy to just effectively dissolve into the work of taking care of everyone else. And that definitely happened to me.
I feel like a lot of what you both just described is the underpinning to what you're doing now with Beyond This. You lose yourself in the situation and what's happened versus the identity you had before or the identity you want to have
Yes.
after. When did Beyond This, and I think for this for both of you, when did Beyond This stop being something you talked about at the kitchen table and start being actually a company? Was there a specific moment, a conversation? Like, what was that flip moment, I guess, for
Yeah, it
that?
actually started at I had a stroke May last year. I went back to rehab and I didn't lose any baseline. So I still was this talkative and I was up and moving and so one of my therapists asked, why don't you help the people in the facility with intimacy? I need some help with that. And I had promised myself 8 years before that I was gonna come back to Ability KC and help the whole facility because nobody would talk to me about sex. And so then when she asked me that, I took on the role and she was like, I want you to do an in-service in 2 weeks. And so I went home. I didn't even know what in-service was. And I was like, we have this thing in front of the whole staff at Ability, and let's go do it. And so we turned it into a company and like LLC and all this stuff, and still went there not even really realizing what an in-service was. And that's how the business came about, really.
We started dreaming about Beyond This a long time ago. My background has always been with people and teams and corporate environments. And one of the things that we've shared throughout our relationship has been just a fascination with humans and how they connect and why and how differently in different circumstances and that sort of thing. And then um, he wasn't supposed to have any more strokes, but he gave me that one for Mother's Day last year. And the readmission to outpatient treatment at Ability was a really beautiful catalyst for taking what had been a dream and hearing it come out of a practitioner's mouth as something that was needed and valuable. Made us both just kind of pause and look at each other and go, okay, well, now's the time for us to do this thing we've been talking about.
You guys said something in the interview process for Social Venture Studio that struck me. I think it struck all of us. And I've heard you say it since, which is the idea that this opportunity found you. The domain expertise, as we say in the founder world of, having the domain expertise, the lived experience, it's different for you. And I want to talk about Beyond This specifically here. You're not just helping people from a rehabilitation perspective. There's a very specific focus and a very specific gap that you identified with Beyond This. And it's not just the fact that you've had 12 strokes. It's what you did before and kind of what your lived experience was before. Tell me about that. Like, what's Beyond This do?
Well, relationships are hard in general. And so you throw in a hospital stay and some strokes and some this or that brain injury, then it definitely is like needing some special attention. And I worked with dating and relationships before I had the strokes. And so once I got into rehab and I was asking all these questions out loud, every patient would stop me and say, wait, do you know about sex? And so then I couldn't answer their question. I still was living in a dream. I didn't tell people, but I literally was living in a dream. And so I could hear a crowd and a studio audience clapping and stuff still, so it wasn't my chance yet to help. But I knew then, like, this was choosing me to be the helper. Because nobody who sits in a wheelchair or that is disabled, well, that we haven't found many that talk out loud about all of these sort of things. And the difference is I could be a founder or I could be a ward of the state. And since we're together, I'm a founder. But if she would have been somewhere else, my own parents advised her to put me in a nursing home. And I would have died if she would have put me in this nursing home. I wouldn't want to stay anywhere else but at my house at that point. And so for me, connecting with these people and helping them stay together is the difference between them being a help to life or a menace to life. Not necessarily a menace, but a burden more so.
Sexual health and relationship health are in scope for therapists, but there's not enough of them or enough time or enough insurance dollars to cover the support that people need. And even if there was, something like 85% of people who want help don't ask for it or don't know how to get it from their therapists.
Is that a stigma thing?
I think it's a stigma thing and it's a resources thing. It's a confidence and practice issue on the practitioner side. It's a timing thing because brain injury is a long recovery process. It takes a long time to cognitively get to where you're even able to focus on a relationship dynamic or switch your thinking, as he described, from sitting in the living room watching court TV to realizing, gosh, I'm still a dad and I'm still a wife or husband. And by then, you're usually not in therapy anymore. And that's the point at which people not only are afraid to ask, but don't know who to ask.
And therapy is like school again. So you go in there and the therapists are your teacher. And so you don't want to talk sex. Well, most people, I do, but most people don't want to talk sex to their teachers and stuff. And the teachers don't want to talk about it either. So I would be in group and I'd bring it up and they say, well, let's talk about that after class, just me and you and stuff. But everybody else would be like, no, answer his questions and stuff. And they never talk to me either. And so it's like stays taboo. Your parents don't want to hear about it, and the therapists don't really want to hear about it.
Sure.
And they tell us, well, we need help with it, but we don't want to be the ones to help with it is the whole thing. And so that's what.
So the business opportunity really developed out of an awareness that there's lots of resources out there for the recovery process for survivors and support mechanisms in place for care partners, but nobody's bringing them together and focusing on the relationship and with that dyadic perspective. So that is where we focus and why we do.
Walk me through the experience. You have a stroke or you have an injury, and you go home. You know, I think the gap that you've described previously has been, there is a process, there is training, there is expertise in that, but that seems like the Maslow's 1 and 2 kind of level, not the relationship and the importance of the health of the relationship. So, what does the system give you and what's missing?
Well, I was actually happy she broke me out of the hospital.
Is that how that went down? Yeah.
Mainly at that point. I actually believed they would never let me out. And so her getting me out, then I really committed my life to her. I'm like, well, you got me out and I'm free. I'm not behind bars anymore. But when we got home, I had a hospital bed that was in the living room. We had stairs. I couldn't get up the stairs. So I had to sleep in the living room. And it was kind of a nicer prison than the hospital was. And they just left me there. And I remember there were 4 days in a row where I was trying to be an adult with her, and people kept coming in to visit. And so then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
somebody has to tell them, hand on the door or something. And so by that point, I was like, we can't live like this. And this is how a lot of people have to go home because you're not prepared with your house. Nobody's house is wheelchair accessible to begin with. You don't know you're going to be in a wheelchair. And so she did the best she could to make our house suitable, but it was still like that. And they helped me at rehab, but they taught me how to keep my pants up. One time we were like transferred to the bed. I don't know how to keep my pants down. And like, I need to help her at this point. And like, nobody was there to help. And I get it. I had one therapist who taught me how to put my hand on her leg. But it motivated me to get this left hand to stretch out and get on her leg and stuff. And so my therapist turned my therapy more so than most people. But we still didn't even have enough. It took me 5 years to hug her. And I didn't even know she was waiting on a hug, but after a stroke, you don't think hug. They taught me how to get back to work and how to do pennies and all these different things, but not hug somebody. So it was kind of like, duh, Brandon. Like, I'm supposed to know all this stuff. I've helped all these people, and I don't even hug my own wife. And so I just can't imagine other couples who don't have the background I have and what they have to go through and stuff.
That moment, that hug,
Mm.
who initiated that? Do you remember? Do you remember that moment?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. That moment was part of our normal morning routine where I still, every day I spot him when I get him up and I help make sure his pants are where they're supposed to be. And this particular day, he just looked at me and he was standing up a little straighter than usual as his back muscles started getting stronger. And he was like, "Hey, come here, give me a hug." And he pulled me in and he worked really hard to get that left arm up around me. And he hugged me for a long time and I just cried. And then I looked at him after that and I was like, "Why did it take you so long to do that?" And he was like, "I don't know."
But
Hadn't thought about it.
I
Yeah.
actually hated hugs too. My whole life, I've said if we're gonna have hugs, we might as well have sex. And so, like, it was like a weird thing anyway. But in that moment, I saw she needed this hug and, like, just gave her the. I could feel her spirit telling me without saying any words.
Lindsay, you work in healthcare, and have. I guess why doesn't the healthcare system support the couple versus the patient? And is it that no one thought of it? Is it that it's just, again, where's the gap in the system?
Well, specifically, I work in behavioral health, and some therapists do, and a lot of them want to, but there aren't enough of them. And once you find somebody, then there's the whole issue of access. Am I able to pay for this care through my insurance? Oftentimes the question is no, or the answer to that question is no. And so, and even in behavioral health, there's a lot of individual therapy and less bringing the couple together. The other thing that's really difficult is that a lot of marriage and family therapists that do work with couples don't have experience with, specifically with acquired disability and the additional layers of dynamics that are present there. So certainly if we could clone them and just have more capacity to go around, that would help. I think that's the biggest issue. And then just the supportive resources for the non-therapeutic, like coping and how am I going to move forward and what does it actually look like to move forward and what tools do I have available to help me are things that people still need even if that behavioral health gap was met.
One of my favorite parts of working with you too is the velocity and trajectory you're on right now. And I know you feel it. Things are happening fast. You're securing partnerships, you're having conversations, and I mean, this is for a company that didn't really even exist, 3 months ago, 60 days ago. Yeah. The demand. You gave us a statistic in terms of kind of the customer interviews and the demand side of this thing when we were going through the interview process. Talk to me a little bit about, like, what's that demand like right now and the gap that exists between the solution and demand.
So approximately 85% of people who leave therapy want help from their therapist with relationship issues or sexual health. only about 15% of them get any help at all, and only 5% of them get it from their therapist. That tracks with our experience, certainly, and with the conversations that we've had. People need and want a lot more help with this stuff than folks realize. And every single couple that we've met is struggling with the same things that we've struggled with.
And the demand market is struggling. The people you're going to be selling to.
Facilities just don't do anything because they don't know what to do.
Right. They want to.
They
But,
want to,
I
and they
wake
don't
up
know what to
every
do.
day to LinkedIn OTs that have heard about me somehow now and have asked me to come talk and do and figure out something to do. We have a school right now who last week asked us to come and wants us to bring the manual with us and stuff. And so the OTs are trying to learn in education and in the facilities. So then that allows the client to then be treated better on the back end too. So it's a big demand all around for all the stuff, really.
So as part of that demand, you have 4 different revenue lines that we've talked about, right? So you've discharge packets for rehabilitation facilities, professional certifications, direct-to-consumer coaching, and a community membership. We've talked about those different revenue lines.
Yep.
Neither of you has run a company before. So how do you decide where to start? How do you decide, where to go first?
Where we've landed with that is we need to make sure that what we're building is helping the people it's intended to help first. And so we've started with getting our experiences bottled up and captured in a workbook that is part memoir and part workbook to help create the first invitation, the first container for people to engage with each other and have meaningful conversation through the first year of recovery. And from that, we can start to build and test the digital and mobile-based app resources that we want people to have access to as part of our suite of services. How we decided, I think, was just prioritizing that impact and then building from there.
That's the Lindsay answer. So I think in a 50-year plan all the time.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I just started emailing, calling every and anybody that had anything to do with this sort of stuff. They said yes, and then I went to Lindsay and said, "Hey, we got to do something." They said yes. We're supposed to be there tomorrow, and so we need to figure this out.
So,
And so
step
that's
one,
actually
step
how
two.
that's how we both got where we are today. There were so many yeses that I was like, no, you need to make something up or else we're going to show up and look like idiots. And so that's how we moved on.
I gotta say, watching you as co-founders is fun. What's that like? You're building a business together. I mean, is it any different than what you've gone through for the last 15 years? Or I mean, I've watched the decision making happen in some of these decisions recently.
Sometimes it's different because, a mentor of mine said, who's going to make the final decision when there's something crucial that comes down? Who's the boss? And I would always like to think I'm the man. I wear the pants in the family and stuff, but she always gets her way. And so it's like a real tough line in that too. And so then I'm like, I need you to do this. And I may say it 22 times and she still hasn't done it, but it's like with the regular employee, I would be like, dude, I say, get this done. And with your wife, I have to live with her still after that. So it's weird. We had an argument-ish over something in the morning time, and then by 10 o'clock we were like, sorry, both of us, and had to go back to being partners and stuff again. So it's different. I learned that she talks more at work than she does as a wife, and so work Lindsay is way different to get used to, even because she uses actual words. Wife Lindsay is like a mute and quiet a lot of the
This is the
time.
first time you're hearing this, or
No,
No,
all right.
It just makes me laugh when he describes me this
But
way.
she talks up a storm work-wise. And she has great ideas, but I'm just not used to it as much and stuff. You say, what do you want for dinner? As a husband, I don't know. You say, well, what do you want to do with this? She has 20 directions to
Yeah.
take it that I don't even know if I want to go yet. So I'm like, dude, I just asked one question. And so,
Yeah. I think in some ways it's very similar to what we've been through, and the stakes are higher when it's your life partner and your person, when there's an impasse or a disagreement. So that feels different than being a leader in a corporate environment and having a team that, of course, I love, but I don't have to go home to them. And so it just makes us a little bit more deliberate and thoughtful when it comes to final decisions. It's testing the tension sometimes between us when we're not speaking the same language about something, since we're both doing something new. But it's fun. It's a lot more fun than it isn't.
and we're more best friends than just being married. I mean, I know that saying it that way sounds weird, but she's not just my wife. She's my best friend. And so working with your best friend is fun, even if you don't agree with different stuff. Like, I can call her a name if I want. I don't, but I could call her a name.
Could he? No, yeah. Brandon, tell me about Levels of Spice. And why did you name it that? What is it? And why did you name it that makes people do double take?
Well, I'm a cook by
Okay.
nature. I did all the cooking before the stroke, and I do probably 65% of it still now. And so it just kind of was a natural metaphor for me. I always speak in metaphors, and it made sense. And we were eating Mexican food and came up with it actually. And so at that point, I needed to know in a G-rated way to be able to ask people and stuff. We were doing the in-service, and I'm like, how are we gonna tell the clinicians exactly what we can offer and stuff? And so that's where the metaphor came from. I just wasn't like you could use X-rated or double X-rated, all these things, because that has such a negative connotation.
Sure.
So I needed like a Disney version of that, basically. That's where the spice.
It actually led to a whole conversation about metaphorically what it means to engage in intimate time with your partner, which does happen on a lot of levels, from just spending time quietly on the couch or in the same room together, very mild. Some people don't even realize that that is a form of intimacy. And we talk about when you're ready to engage or you're wanting to engage with your partner, you have to think about what ingredients you have to work with and how much energy you need to cook the meal. And it became a whole kind of kitchen metaphor with that spice framework as the entry point. That's a little bit humorous, but also professional enough and approachable enough for people to understand that the conversation about sex is not always just an explicit conversation about the intercourse itself. It's a whole range of things that foster relational stability leading up to that.
Watching you two embrace metaphors is so much fun, because you say you speak in metaphors all the time. You've kind of taken Levels of Spice and you've the workbook, you've extended that, and I love it because it makes it so relatable to anyone. It's such a universal way of thinking about it. Walk me through a little bit, like where you've gone with that and how you're using, kind of a common metaphor that everybody can relate to help understand how this process works and moves forward.
So the kitchen is one room in the house, and that's where the magic kind of begins. It's the heart of the home for most people. And we sort of naturally just began to talk about acquired disability, in Brandon's case, the strokes that he had as the house got flooded. And so we've expanded on that metaphor of the house getting flooded. When a natural disaster strikes and totally destroys the home that you live in and everything that's familiar that you love and that you know, then You have to deal with the aftermath of that. And the process of piecing everything back together over time is also very similar to the process of learning how to be in your new body and how to grieve your old self and how to decide if you want to rebuild in the same house or if you need to rebuild somewhere else. And then coming to the grips with the situation and starting to love the home that you have. So we use the workbook as kind of like the front porch to the house, and we want to invite people into the home and explore the process of our rebuilding and start talking more about their own.
And a lot of that is there's a lot of watching your partner do what you can't do anymore. And I saw that as her carrying out the old me into the trash dump that's out there and having to come back to the new me. And so then that's kind of like what started it, because when you're getting rid of the old wiring and the old paneling on the floor and all these things, you have to take all of that out, come back in with some new. And so watching her do all that work is like hard and tough, especially when you know that you should be helping, but it's kind of tough to help bury yourself too at the same time. I always say I had to bury myself in the backyard and know that the old me lives there while I'm in the new me still. And so that is like a really odd and like morbid thing to have to deal with as a whole. But you almost have to do that when you're in this type of situation because it's so surreal. Like it took me a year to know this was real life still. I was waiting to wake up in North Kansas City Hospital and be okay. And they took me to North Kansas City Hospital. And I had to walk out the same way I walked in. And so it was like a real big wake up call to me that I wasn't going back to the old me, which at this point I wouldn't even actually go back to the old me if I had the chance to. I love the new me. And so
What he described as ambiguous grief, it is like that. It feels morbid and it's also kind of beautiful and it's complicated and it doesn't end because you're always becoming and you're always discovering little bits of the old self that are still in there somewhere and may still have a place. So,
Has this changed how you think about behavioral health care? Was this something you were, I guess maybe I should ask it this way, were you in the behavioral health care field prior to?
um, no, I
Okay.
work for a behavioral health care company, but I lead the people team
Okay.
and I have always led HR functions and
Okay.
people teams. It has dramatically changed the way I think about teams and people and relationships and community and the role of work and um, the um, the role of identity in the work we do, and also about leadership. Watching him literally heal his body by looking at his arm and thinking about healing it, and watching him use the power of his thoughts to change his body and change his mindset so profoundly is power that we all have and we don't use. And so it led me down lots of rabbit holes about neuroscience and leadership and stuff like that. It also just, in some strange way, gave me an opportunity to double down on and affirm the things that led me to do work in the human resources and people and culture space to begin with. Because work is more about being human than it is about the work itself.
Oh, I got in a fight with our HR group one time. I led a large organization, and I think I said, this is actually maybe the end of my corporate career. If I were to put a pin in the moment, and I said, I think we've all lost sight of what the H stands for in HR.
Yes.
Um, I think that was maybe the moment where they thought, well, we should probably escort him out at some point in the near future. Lindsay, I want to, coaching is not therapy.
No.
And there's a legal distinction here that matters in terms of what you're building now.
Yes.
So how do you think about the boundary between what Beyond This does and what a licensed therapist does? And what happens when a client needs more than coaching?
Yeah. Therapy is about diagnosing clinical problems and working with patients to address those clinical diagnoses with a treatment plan and prescription. Coaching is where therapy leaves off, in that we come into the conversation knowing that each individual we work with and every couple that we work with are the experts in their own bodies and their lives. And we're not in the business of diagnosing what's wrong. We're just in the business of helping them chart their own path forward, and doing so with a sense of community, because one of the most difficult parts of the process of living through acquired disability and partnership with a disabled person or with a disability is the isolation that comes from it. No matter the fact that 25% of the country has a disability, we all feel like very alone in the process. And so having someone who understands what it's like and can start the conversation without requiring a diatribe about what happened and explaining everything is itself part of the power of the process.
And it's even lonely in your own house. So me and her can be on the same couch, and it's still the most lonely feeling because I'm somebody else in that moment. So I don't know if she loves me, if she wants me, all these different things, which the Brandon before me would have known everybody loves me and wants me. So it was like a totally new experience. And so I'm sitting there wondering these thoughts, and she may say, I say, I'm thirsty. I need to do this with the baby we just had. I say, she hates me. My brain tells me that immediately. And so it's such a lonely moment in that moment. You need to know that other people felt that same way. When I first said this to someone, because I was scared to tell anyone, you sound crazy. And so then someone said, no, that happened to me too. And it was such assurance to that person and me. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy and you're not crazy. Like, this is what happens. And so it's lonely in so many different ways. And so we just wanted to put people together. Like, I've always thought love was the answer and the only language that everyone knows. A hug speaks to everybody, even though I hate hugs. But it does.
I guess you probably don't hate hugs anymore, right?
No, they're okay.
Yeah, all right, good. Brandon, you've mentioned that traditional support groups for stroke don't work for you. And I guess my question is, what's missing from the existing options, and what do you hope Beyond This adds and offers that they don't?
Well, I still wanted to be intellectual and like have a real conversation about things, like these sort of things. I wanted to tell what I was thinking and feeling, and their group was more of like, hey, well, how you feel about this? And ask you simple, kind of like small talk questions. And it's for some people, it's for daycare more so than like somebody trying to get back to. I'm at home listening to Les Brown and like Jim Ron and all these different things. And so it just wasn't a situation for me. I need to be better. And it's for an older group of people, a lot of the stuff. There were a lot of people told me in there, well, I'm about to die. I'm not worried about all this stuff. Well, I have a lot to live for, so I'm not, it's okay if you are okay there. That's fine too. But like, I want to, the people who want to keep going with life and do all the things, start a business, all of these sort of things. This is where you can come and do those sort of things. And so I wanted to be motivated to help other people get to that point. I've always told everybody I'm the person to spark the mind to change the world. And so this is the calling that is a way to do that.
Lindsay, you've the website talks about a dyadic coaching model, and I think in this segment specifically, dyadic coaching isn't something that happens as much. And so why is that?
It's a great question. I think because the medical system is in some ways understandably and necessarily set up to address the person who has the disability. And it widely recognizes and acknowledges that relational stability is a determinant of those outcomes, but there just isn't enough resources, and the person who is the care partner or the other part of the dyad is not practitioners aren't compensated for helping them. So I think it's just a design flaw in the system.
This is why I use my Pat Mahomes reference. So I went from a football field to a hospital. They treated me as the star. I hit a button, everybody come in and serve me, and nurses. It was nice. And so when you go home, that it's not like that. But she's the Brittany Mahomes, and they want her to just cheerlead on the sign. But when Pat tore his knee, Brittany had to feed him. She had to do all these different things. So she's the superstar in my house. And so, like, they don't understand that while you're in there, even at rehab, everyone's treating me and changing me and teaching me. And so then with the lack of, like, not helping her with anything, and she actually, you asked her a question earlier, but this made her shine more. Her personality and like inner self came out, and everybody was like, "Whoa, she's like super amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, I picked really well, duh."
Yeah.
And so it was kind of neat to see like what happened with her, and it was actually intimidating to the point where I said, "Well, could I be that great if the shoe was on the other foot?" Now she would say, "Yes, you are that great," but at the same time, you have to question, like, because death do us part. Everyone says, "Okay, yeah, that's a thing," but then when your person pees on herself or is in a wheelchair, like all these different things, that's not in the vows. They don't even tell you that that's an option, and so it's kind of interesting.
I've heard you quote a statistic. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but the relationship failure in this situation.
It's a lot. It depends on the source.
Okay. Give me a range.
Somewhere between 60 and 80% of relationships fail after a disability. Many therapists are like, "You're lucky your wife stayed with you."
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many of them leave.
Under 65. So if you're over 65, it actually goes way up that you stay together. But under that, so if you have kids and like the range where you're still involved in society a lot is where the divorce rate is really high still. So it affects everybody around us too, because if I go away and become a ward of the state, 8 kids have lost their daddy, and our taxpayers are paying for those 8 kids at that point. And so it's bigger than just that 2 dyad anyway, even though that's what keeps it all together is that dyad.
I think that's a great segue to kind of this final question, and you kind of answered it, but I want to hear more specifically. If when Beyond This is successful, what do you hope changes for the next person, that has been engaged in the system that you're developing and engaged in this process?
Go ahead.
One of the things that's top of mind for me is that there are no milestones to celebrate for the care partner in the relationship. There's no known path or stated path or even concept laid out for what that part of the experience is like. I would love to see that changed. And what we want to change for all couples who go through this is that disability doesn't become the end of the love story. We want practitioners and behavioral health therapists and more coaches like us to create space for people to be in community and rally and not just hope, but actually realize that there's incredible life to still be lived in spite of the hardships that we go through.
And for me, I see that student that we're talking to now that watches our master class going into a facility in 2 years and then saying, why aren't we beyond this certified? So that facility is talking to the couple, and every couple is at least having a chance to get back to connection and sex and all of those sort of things, just so that the funnel keeps building on itself. And long when we're gone, it's still a thing that's keeping couples together. Like the love I just said, I expect it to last forever.
You guys are an inspiration, and not just because of what I think the resilience, but because watching you want to build something that helps the people who are also going through, what you've lived through and what you're living through. So, I mean, thank you. That just seems so
Thank
short
you.
of what I should be saying right now. It is an honor to work with you guys and to help you kind of on this journey. And like I said earlier, watching the trajectory and the velocity at which you're moving is, should be inspiring for all entrepreneurs, because you guys are doing it and you're doing it so quickly. And it's fun to watch. I did an episode recently where I talked about, some programs choose people really well and take credit for that. I feel a little bit like that every time we interact with you, is that you guys would do this with or without this program. And so I feel just kind of honored to be on this journey with you guys. So thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for the work you're doing. And I definitely want to have you guys back at some point to do an alumni episode to talk about, kind of this success you've had in building this company together.
Awesome.
Good.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks a lot.